The other option that is available to you is the export option. By clicking on the export tab, you have 5 different available categories under the export tab. You have the billing exports. These are all the billing exports that are available to you. You will get all the billing detail by merchant. System exports. These are all the different system exports that are available to you. Credit card exports. All the different credit card exports that are available to you. ACH exports. These are all the different ACH exports that are available to you. Your personal exports works the same as your personal reports. All of the exports that you create will be then available to you via your personal exports. If we click on the CC exports, I can show you how to create one of the credit card exports, show you how to fill out the parameters form, and show you what an export looks like. I'm going to choose the credit card / debit card authorizations export. Scroll over to the edit pencil and click on it. Just like the personal reports, you're brought to a parameters form via the exports option. There are 3 different file types that you can choose from for exports. There's tab delimited, XML, and CSV. I'm going to show you how to create an export via CSV file. If I choose CSV, I always want to choose the include header / footer row box and check that. That will allow me to see the column headers so that I know what data exists in each individual column. When using CSV file and opening that CSV file on your PC, this will open up in an Excel format. The quote columns box should also be checked, which will provide you with a prettier version of the CSV file. It will also put everything in the appropriate columns. You can query by time zone. By checking that box, it's going to ask you the time zone you would like to run your query in. I'm going to choose Eastern Standard Time. You can run the export as a one-time export or recurring export. If you choose recurring, it's going to ask you to select your frequency, daily, weekly, or monthly. It's going to ask you the time zone that you would like this report or export to be delivered to you. Choose Eastern Standard Time. It's going to ask you to select the time that you want this recurring report to be delivered to you on a daily basis. Let's choose 8 a.m. Your scheduled start date always has to be today or in the future. Your scheduled end date you can leave as until I disable, and that will allow you to come in and disable this export at any point in time you'd like, or you can choose the until radial button and disable this report on a specific day using the calendar via the drop down. You always want to make sure that your status of your export is enabled. The exports can also be delivered to you via the FTP directory. Your FTP directory delivery can be set up via your customer service representative. The exports are highly customizable. In the selected columns box are the fields that are going to be supplied in your export. The fields that you see in your current selected columns box are there by default. These are the columns that most of our clients like to see in their credit card authorizations export. You can customize these columns by clicking on a particular field. Let's say you want the authorization capture date local time in your export. If you highlight that in the available columns box and click the arrow key pointing to the selected columns box, that will add that particular column to your export. If you want to remove a specific column from your export, the same thing applies, where you highlight that field and move the field from your selected columns box back over to your available columns box. If you don't like any of these fields and you want to start all over, you could hit the double arrows pointing to the available columns box, and that will clear your particular export and allow you to start from scratch. At that point in time, you can choose 3, 4, 5 fields that you may like, as many as you like, and add those individually to your selected columns box. If you want all of the fields and then want to sort and filter by all of the columns once you've received your export, you can choose the double arrows pointing over to your selected columns box, and that will add all columns to your particular export. If you want to move a column around within your export, if you highlight that particular field and hit the up and down arrow keys, it will move that field within your export. The first field, AVS required, within this export is your first column. The last field, authorization capture date, is your last column in your export. Your summary field option, if you click on the drop down, it provides you with an amount option. If you choose the amount option, it will allow you to summarize the amount column within your export. After you have chosen all of your columns, you want to hit the save button. Once you've hit the save button, as you can see now, I've created a recurring daily export. In order to show you what an export looks like, I'm going to go in and create another credit card export that is a one-time export. I'm going to go through the same parameters tab by scrolling over to the right and clicking on the edit pencil. By clicking on the edit pencil, again, I'm going to choose CSV. I'm going to include header/footer row. I'm going to leave my quote columns box checked so that I can have a nice pretty export. I'm going to query by Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to leave my frequency at 1 time. I'm going to choose my time zone for my export to be delivered to me in Eastern Standard Time. My scheduled time is also going to be a time in the past. If I want my export to be delivered to me immediately, you always have to choose a time that's already occurred within the day. You can also schedule your export to be delivered to you at a later time that day, but if you need the report to run immediately for you, you want to make sure that you choose a time in the day that's already passed. So I am going to choose 9 a.m. Your scheduled start date needs to be today or in the future. You want to make sure that your status is enabled. Any one-time exports can also be delivered to you via FTP. The day criteria is the only section that is changed from the recurring export option. You need to choose a start date and an end date for your particular export. By clicking on the drop down, I'm going to choose my start date of February 23rd and my end date of February 25th. I want all of the columns available in my particular export, so I'm going to click the double arrows over to the selected columns box. I want my amount column summed up, so I'm going to choose amount under the summary field and then hit save. Once I've done that, I now have another one-time credit card, debit card authorization export available to me in my personal exports. If I click on the plus sign for my particular export, I can see that it's pending for 223 to 225. I can refresh this by clicking on the refresh option of your internet browser, or by just clicking on the negative sign and then back on the positive sign for that particular export. The exports usually take about 30 seconds to run. At any point in time, I can go back in and edit my exports by clicking on the edit pencil. I can change the date. I can change the time I want it delivered to me. I can also delete this export from my personal exports at any point in time by clicking on the delete trash can. Going to refresh again. And as you can see, my export is now completed. It says completed for dates 2/23 to 2/25. If I want to see the data within my export, I want to click on the data link here. I can also see a summary of my export, and I can also rerun my export at any point in time. By clicking on the data link and clicking the open option, you will see a CSV version of the credit card, debit card authorization export. It's a very detailed report which provides you all of the transactions that make up the date or date range that you've chosen. As you can see, it does open in CSV, which is very compatible to Excel. So you can save this CSV version of your export into Excel and do all of the sorting and filtering that you'd like to do to get the data that you need. As you can see, I've chosen several columns for my export, and all of those columns have data in them. Once you realize that this is an export that you want to save, you can save by clicking on the File, Save As option via your PC. Once you're done with your export, you can cancel it, and your export will remain in your personal exports for up to 5 days. Your personal exports option, if you click on the Home tab and go through the steps to get back to your exports, if you click on Reports, click on the Exports tab, and then click on your personal exports, you will be brought to all of your personal exports that you've created in the past. At this point in time, you could edit or delete these particular exports.